Hello. I do want to talk today about the cultural barriers that we see in people to saying no, because I see that so often. It's like really hard for people to say, it's not what I want to do. Like, no, thank you. And yes, I see that you're expecting this of me, but it doesn't feel right for me. We hear like people are so concerned with toxic relationships, toxic work relationships. There's a big community of people that are feeling they've been in a relationship with a narcissist, and it's been really hard for them to say no to the demands that were being put on them, that were from a person that was really selfish. The same with work. People take on more and take on more and take on more, and then eventually they just walk out because it's just gotten too much. But they have not been able to say, no, I can do this, but I won't do that. And so it's absolutely true that you want healthy boundaries. You want healthy boundaries to define your space, to define what is true for you, what serves you, what feeds you, like all of those things. You don't want to take on other people's problems and make them yours and try to solve them. Of course not. That's not going to work very well for you. But the way to do that is to say yes and no from a place of power, from a position of inner strength. And so that power, that inner strength, that is born from self-knowledge and self-appreciation. You know who you are, and you know what you're worth. So knowing those things not on an intellectual level, like, of course I know I'm worth the same as everybody else. Of course I know I'm worth like this much money or whatever. It's a felt knowledge that is embodied. It's a certainty of self rather than an idea. From that point, you don't have to shy away from conversations. You don't have to shy away from demands. You're able to hear the question and respond from a calm place, not defensive, not aggressive, but just calm. So if you don't come from that position of inner calm, you come from a position of fear. So let's have a look at what that position of fear looks like. When you come from a position of fear, if you retreat from somebody's expectations or demands or accusations, and so, for example, in my own life, what I would do is I would look down and away if asked to take on more work that I didn't really want to take on. And what was going on in my mind was, if I don't do that, they're not going to appreciate me anymore. They might even fire me. I don't have a choice. Or I might flare up and say things like, I've already been here for 10 hours. Or you could have been on time and then I would have been here. So if you are feeling anger, you're feeling hurt, resentment, or when you're imploding and you shy away from engaging. Also, if I just had to walk away, I couldn't do it anymore. That is not a position of strength. And don't get me wrong, this is not a fault. And I'll get to that in a little while. I'm just pointing these things out to help you understand what is going on for so many of us. I've done the same thing. And I've inquired into my motives over time, and I got to see them. And that is self-knowledge. So you act from a position of inner strength when you can say yes or no, either one, to demands and expectations without an inner upheaval. So when you asked to do something or to say something, or you're faced with anything, you consider yourself first before you answer. You consider, how does this sit in your body? Is it at ease? Do I take this on from a position of, yes, this is right? And there can be some fear and excitement. When we grow, we also stretch. And so a measure of fear can be there, but it's not overwhelming. It's a acknowledging, like, okay, this could be a little scary, but yes, I want to do that. It'll help me grow. That's okay. But not, I think I should do that. I am scared, but I think I really should do that. That's not strength. You consider your truth. You consider your truth by feeling how this thing that you're asked to do is sitting in your body. And your answer is not fueled by obligation. It's not fueled by morals. People should behave like that. Or by fear of rejection. And sometimes you're not sure. And then your answer is, I don't know yet. I have to think about this. Can you ask me again later? Those things are perfectly good answers to demands. So it's a really good thing to be able to have those healthy boundaries. And these boundaries, they are defining boundaries rather than defensive boundaries. So we know that we need these boundaries to be true to ourselves and to be in our truth and to do the best for ourselves. So why is it so difficult then to say no? So look at it like this. We do have a shadow consciousness. I'm sure you've heard about that. So a small part of our consciousness we are aware of. And then there is a larger part that is subconscious. You know, it's that iceberg analogy. There's a small part above the waterline and then this huge part below the waterline. So there is that first part below the waterline. It's the subconscious. And we can be aware of that to a certain degree. And then there is a large part underneath, that's the unconscious. And so a lot of our actions happen through impulses that come from subconscious and unconscious. What's sitting in there is things that we've learned how to act when we were children and you know, also young adults. So in infancy, in children and in childhood, we learned to obey our parents. We learned that our parents knew better than we did. We learned that not obeying would gain us disapproval. And that disapproval can come in the form of emotional withdrawal from a parent, scolding, or it can be really harsh, you know, beatings. Either way, those early lessons will stick with us. If we say no, and this is age 2 and 3, when a young child needs to establish their identity. And a lot of parents will react with discipline. They say that a normal child will hear no up to 90 times every day. So if we insist on doing what we know is right for us at that early age, we are cast out from the family. And that will stay with you. And then in school, we learned about work ethic, right? Working hard equals approval. Lacking work ethic equals disapproval. The teachers tell us that if we don't work hard, we won't be successful in life. These things stay with us. So now, in our work environment, in our relationships, we still act out of these early teachings. Saying no will mean I will be abandoned. Saying no and not working harder, taking more on, means that I will not be successful. I will be disapproved of. And these fears out of the shadow keep us from saying no and yes in a truthful way to ourselves and to every situation as it comes. Not like, okay, I know I have an extra hour after work and, I know I can always take on extra work. No, it's listening to today, this demand. How does it sit with me right now? So to me, the task of our lives in this way is to evolve as adults. So there is developmental theory, one of many, for adult development by Robert Keegan. And he describes the stages of adult development as first of all, a self-centered stage as a young adult. It's called a sovereign mindset. So in that stage, the young adults, teenagers and young adults, say, I am that and I'm not that. So it is a definition of me versus the rest of the world. And in that time, often we see the world as black and white. We experience the world as being against us. When we grow through that, it's a normal growing up process, this. So remember that when you run into your teenagers. This is a normal growing up process. And it needs to be encouraged so that it can be transcended. The next more mature mindset is a socialized mindset, where we begin to value the importance of our community. We start to see the strength of teamwork. And also we base our feelings of value on the approval of other people in our community. In this stage, we would feel strongly as in belonging to a community. That can be a class at school, that can be your college, could be your nation, your religion. And we interpret things out of that mindset. When we mature further, we mature into a self-authored mindset. This is the stage where we begin to write our own stories, where we take responsibility for our choices, for our emotional state, and for how our life evolves. About a third of the adult population lives in that self-authored mindset. The last stage that Robert Keegan describes is called a self-transforming mindset. At this stage, we begin to see ourselves as a part of the whole, not just a bigger group, but the whole of it. We understand ourselves better, and in that we can understand others. We are able to amalgamate opposing points of view because we can understand, we can see the complexity of the universe. We also start to see that we control very little. And we are able to let go of that control and allow ourselves to trust. And we're also trusting our own self-worth. So to me, the task of our lives is to evolve into higher levels of being, because really that is where we feel safe, where we can be the best use for this world we live in. To reach those higher levels of consciousness, we have to learn about ourselves. We have to own our fears. And that doesn't mean we get swallowed up in them. It just means we are conscious of them, and we can go, yes, I'm scared right now. Yes, I feel angry right now. But knowing it will pass. It's a response to something that is happening. It's a response to a challenge that I can grow with. When we own our shadow in more and more ways, we really, really start to see our self-worth. We really appreciate ourselves much more. And as a result, we can show up in the world with compassion and with a feeling of security. And when somebody asks ourselves, when somebody asks you to do something at that stage with that kind of self-knowledge, then you check in with you. And if it sits right with you, you can say yes, without restraint, without resentment, without doubt, without needing the approval. And you can say no from that feeling of being centered with you. You can say no without fear of disapproval, without doubt, and without needing to be defensive and feeling resentful and angry. Just no, I won't. It's not what I'm going to do now. And you can say no with compassion. I can see how that would help you right now. And I won't do it. I would really like to be helpful to you, but I won't do it right now. Or you can feel the uncertainty in yourself and you can say, I don't know yet. Please ask me later. Those are powerful ways of being in the world. So just notice that next time you have trouble saying no to somebody, it is likely because of the way you have been conditioned in this culture. That's just how it is. It's not a fault of yours. But you can dive into that unconscious and learn about yourself and transcend it and grow past that conditioning. That is your task. So I hope this was a little bit helpful. And if you want to know more about how I help people finding that inner self-knowledge and that self-worth, then do reach out. Send me a text or put a comment under the video, and please share it if you have found it helpful.